Chapter 497.4, Side Story 1 Part 4. Samadhi's True Flame 4. That Jian Munjia, the Grand Master of the Zhongnan sect, knelt on one knee and paid his respects. It was something no one had expected. It wasn't just anyone but Jian Munjia, the Grand Master symbolizing Zhongnan, who showed such respect by kneeling, not even in the Three Purities Hall. The words that came out of his mouth were enough to shock everyone. Jian Munjia of Zhongnan pays his respects to the heavenly demon cult leader, the greatest under heaven. In an instant, silence fell over the Weiangjing restaurant. They doubted their own ears for a moment. What did their Grandmaster just say? The heavenly demon cult leader? Shiver. A chill ran down their spines. Is he talking about that being who is undisputedly called the sole pinnacle of the current martial arts world? Jian Munjia swallowed dryly, his mouth parched as he saw them frozen in shock at this unimaginable identity. A chill ran down their spines. Is he talking about that being who is undisputedly called the sole pinnacle of the current martial arts world? Jian Munjia swallowed dryly, his mouth parched as he saw them frozen in shock at this unimaginable identity. The strange sensation he felt outside just moments ago. It felt as if the inside of the restaurant was being cut off from the outside. This wasn't something that even a supreme master who had surpassed the barrier could do. He had hurriedly entered and he thought his heart would stop. Jian Munjia had participated in the Great War between the righteous and unorthodox sects a year ago, so he was one of those who had witnessed that tremendous might with his own eyes. For the first time in his life he saw heaven and earth split. He thought that if there was a martial god descended to the mortal world, it would be him. It wasn't just him. All the masters of the Righteous Alliance who participated in that war would have felt the same. That's why they avoided confrontation with the heavenly demon divine cult and acknowledged him as the greatest under heaven. These foolish ones. Given this, although he didn't know what had transpired earlier, Jian Munjia couldn't help but be bewildered by all of this. Even though the Taoists of the Sun lineage were guarding the Zhongnan sect's headquarters at the time, he never thought they wouldn't recognize the heavenly demon cult leader. How did they end up clashing with the heavenly demon divine cult's leader? In fact, it was even more incomprehensible that the heavenly demon divine cult's leader was in the imperial capital without his subordinates to assist him. Why would someone of his caliber come to the imperial capital in the first place? At that moment, Sun Moon, who had been flustered after hearing his identity, spoke up. Grandmaster. The heavenly demon divine cult's leader is so young. Pay your respects to the cult leader immediately. Jian Munjia cut him off and urged. But he's from the demonic path. Hush. Jian Munjia glared at him fiercely as if exasperated. The Taoists of the Sun lineage who hadn't directly witnessed the heavenly demons might not fully grasp the situation, but if that person decided to, everyone here would die without even realizing they were dead. Regardless of right or wrong, they had messed with someone who should absolutely not be provoked. Jian Munjia urged once more. Pay your respects. At his command, Jian Haiyanjia, his disciple, and the other Taoists of the Sun lineage hurriedly knelt on one knee and paid their respects. This included Sun Moon as well. However, in this situation, there was one person who couldn't bring himself to kneel. It was Jin Zhonghayan, the 1,000-man commander of the embroidered uniform guard and Jian Munjia's disciple. Mok Jiangun? Jin Zhonghayan was bewildered by this situation for a different reason. He knew the heavenly demon. This was because they had taken the embroidered uniform guard test together at the archery department. Mok Jiangun is the heavenly demon? Having remained in the embroidered uniform guard at the imperial palace, he wasn't well informed about the rumors in the martial arts world. However, even he knew that the system of the six heavens, which had been at the peak of the current martial arts world, had collapsed and a true peerless master had emerged. But he couldn't believe that this peerless master was Mok Jiangun. This can't be. There were two people who had cracked his pride as a so-called genius. They were Zhu Wenxiang and Mok Jiangun. However, both then and now, Jin Zhonghayan still believed there wasn't much difference between them and himself. But seeing even his master kneeling like this, his mind was in utter confusion. At that moment, Jian Munjia spoke in a whisper. Zhonghayan. Not now. Pay your respects. Jian Munjia thought that his disciple Jin Zhonghayan wasn't kneeling because of his pride as an official. Master. That person. Zhonghayan. Plunge. Jin Zhonghayan, who had been clenching his fist, couldn't resist his master's insistence and was about to kneel on the floor. He had his pride as a 1,000-man commander of the embroidered uniform guard, but he thought there must be a reason for even his master to show such a humiliating posture. However, he suddenly remembered something. Wait a minute. Didn't Mok Jiangun die in an unfortunate accident while in the embroidered uniform guard's medical ward after being injured by So Yeren, who was a 6 officers commander at the time, during the archery department test? Then why is he alive? Come to think of it, the imperial palace had been turned upside down due to Prince Jiangjin's death and the incident where a prisoner escaped from the underground Golden Prison. Later, the test applicants who belonged to the Heaven and Earth Society all disappeared and were strongly suspected as the culprits, but the matter was eventually swept under the rug due to the Imperial Consortio's intervention. Now that I think about it, Prince Zhong has been constantly looking for a pretext to pressure the Imperial Consortio. If so, couldn't we use this to mobilize forces under the Southern Pacification Commissioner and the Embroidered Uniform Guard, claiming to protect her and the Imperial Court and subdue this guy? Southern Pacification Commissioner Gu Songbek. His other title as the Emperor's bodyguard was the Northern Sect Blade King, the highest martial artist in the Imperial Palace who had reached the Profound Realm. Gu Songbek was still frustrated about letting the culprits escape during the underground Golden Prison breakout incident. If played right, he might be willing to act. No matter how great a master he is, he can't withstand a combined attack from a peerless expert close to his level and the elite of the Embroidered Uniform Guard alone. As they say, a blessing in disguise. This is perfect. This could be an opportunity to suppress the Imperial Consortio's faction and gain Prince Zhong's trust. Snap. I'll kneel for now. But you'll soon regret coming to this imperial capital. Suddenly, Jin Zhonghayan's expression hardened. What did I just do? Why am I saying out loud what I was thinking inside? As he was bewildered, he saw Jian Munjia, the Grand Master of the Zhongnan sect, sigh and bow his head. Did he use some kind of sorcery? Realizing something was wrong, Jin Zhonghayan's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts in an instant. However, knowing he couldn't take back the words he had uttered, he shouted, "This just now was my personal kook." Before he could finish his words, Jin Zhonghayan, feeling as if someone had gripped his throat, couldn't breathe properly. What is this? Then he heard a clear voice. For the sake of prenatal education, how long do you think it would take me to make everyone here draw their last breath without shedding blood? Is this monster? How could he block his airway just by moving his energy without even lifting a finger? It was chilling to witness such an impossible feat. Then the voice continued. He was reading all of his thoughts even though he hadn't spoken them. But what followed was even more outrageous. If it interferes with my prenatal education pilgrimage, I might have to erase the Imperial Embroidered Uniform Guard and the Zhongnan sect from this world to avoid any hassle. Shiver. At that moment, Jin Zhonghayan felt not just his breath being blocked, but his mind growing dizzy from the tremendous pressure bearing down on him. He had never felt such intimidation even when facing Southern Pacification Commissioner Gu Songbek. Jin Zhonghayan's face turned not just pale but was drenched in sweat. If someone else had said it, it might have sounded like an empty threat, but with this current aura, it sounded like he really would do it. No, it felt like he could actually do it. It was no longer just humiliation or disgrace. He sincerely felt that the situation he had brought about was nothing short of a disaster. It was at that moment. Before his words could finish, Jian Munjia drew his sword and immediately grabbed the tip with his other hand, bringing the blade to the back of his neck. Then Jian Munjia spoke in a pleading voice. My disciple in his ignorance has committed a grave offense against the heavenly demon divine cult's leader. This may not easily appease your anger, but I beg you to show a shred of mercy to Zhongnan and my disciple with this old man's life. A master. Grandmaster. Master. All the Zhongnan sect Taoists, including his disciple Jian Haiyanja, were at a loss seeing Grandmaster Jian Munjia's earnest gesture, which even disregarded shame. Had there ever been such humiliation since the founding of the Zhongnan sect? It was enough to make them feel self-loathing. However, they had no choice but to submit to the current situation. Their opponent was the greatest under heaven, a monster who could take their lives without even moving a finger. Even if someone stepped forward now, no one could salvage the situation. At that moment, the young man, No, the heavenly demon, smirked and then said nonchalantly, Be grateful that you can keep your lives thanks to your master's cool judgment and noble sacrifice. What? Snap. At that moment, with the sound of snapping fingers, all the Zhongnan sect Taoists collapsed as if fainting on the spot. Thud. 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 This was no exception for anyone. Even Jian Munjia, who could be considered the highest martial artist of the Zhongnan sect, had been poised to commit suicide, but his eyes slowly closed and he collapsed. The only ones who didn't collapse were the staff of Wei Yingjing. They were so shocked by this sight that they couldn't close their mouths. The heavenly demon calmly said to them, "They'll wake up after a day, so leave them be. Today's reservation is cancelled, so may we finish our meal and leave." At these words, the senior staff member of Wei Yingjing nodded frantically and replied, "How could we refuse? We'll serve you to the utmost." The real customers they needed to be mindful of weren't the Zhongnan sect Taoists. As the staff, including the senior member, moved busily while being attentive, Chong Ryong caressed her protruding belly and spoke. "Our little one should know that Daddy is suppressing his old temper a lot for the baby in Mommy's belly. It was possible that just a year and a few months ago not just one person but everyone here might have lost their lives." At Chong Ryong's words, the heavenly demon gave a gentle smile, shrugged lightly and reached for the wine bottle. Flinch. But as he was reaching for it, the heavenly demon paused and raised one eyebrow. "What's wrong?" As Chong Ryong asked curiously, the heavenly demon spoke in a subdued voice. "The connection with the demonic beast Aliu has been severed." Chapter 497.5, Side Story 1 Part 5. Samadhi's True Flame 5. A mountain with few plants and trees, Mount Soham. This was Mount Soham 1, which was incredibly steep and treacherous. On a desolate cliff of Mount Soham, an Imi Manjiang with a body that seemed to be a mix of dog and ox horse hooves, and a horned head resembling a dragon, was suffering with its lower body charred black. Kiririri. This Imi Manjiang was Aliu, the familiar beast of the heavenly demon. Why was this Imi Manjiang, which would take dozens of skilled diviners to barely handle and even top martial artists would find challenging to face, gasping for breath in such a state? It was because of the two wheels burning within the shadow in front of its eyes. Whoosh! The wheels of flame spinning at high speed were extraordinary in their momentum. The heat was so intense that even the surrounding cliffs were melting. The reddened surroundings were truly a land of fire. Kiriri. Damn it. I heard it had disappeared long ago. Aliu looked at the wheels of flame as if in disbelief. Although connected by a bond, it had barely gained freedom and returned to Mount Soham where it was born, only to face this situation after just a year. It was like a bolt from the blue. The being before it was truly comparable to the six demons. It wanted to call for help from its master, the heavenly demon, but for some reason, it felt surrounded by something invisible on all sides, preventing its thoughts from being transmitted. Then a voice came from behind the wheels of flame. "I'll ask once more. Where is the white-faced king?" Kiriri. "I know. Haven't I said I don't know?" Sigh. A sigh was heard. Along with it, the fiercely rotating wheels rolled forward, causing friction with the ground and crushed Aliu's two lower legs. Whoosh. Crunch. Kiriririk. Aliu howled and writhed in such intense pain. Where the wheels had passed, only black ashes remained, crushed and burned beyond recognition. After the wheels returned to their original position, the voice was heard again. "This is the last time. Where is it?" At this question, Aliu was bewildered even through its pain. It was already upset about being suddenly attacked and put in this state, but why was this being looking for the white-faced king from it? If it were looking for its master, the heavenly demon, instead. Could it be? Aliu's eyes trembled as if it had just realized something. Come to think of it, it vaguely remembered hearing from its master that the great strength king of the six demons had been sealed into stone. It's not just any stone. It must be a killing stone. 3. It had heard that the fox spirit bead 4, the great spiritual demonic treasure of the white-faced king, the golden nine-tailed fox, could create stones with strange and deadly poison crafted from demonic power. I see. So that's why. Now it clearly understood why this being was looking for the white-faced king. Even for a being said to be comparable to the six demons, only the white-faced king, the golden nine-tailed fox, could break the seal of the killing stone. It didn't know how this being thought to have disappeared had reappeared, but it made sense that it would try to break the seal on the great strength king. Damn. Your loyalty is quite impressive. Kiriri. What? Did you think that bond wouldn't be visible to me? The bond? Can this be seen? Upon becoming a familiar, it was connected to the heavenly demon by a red bond. No matter how strong one's demonic power, the bond was a spiritual connection that shouldn't be visible without special methods, but this seemed unusual. However, this wasn't the problem. Kiriri. Wait, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not connected to the white-faced king. You're trying to deceive me. Kiriri. It's true. I serve a different being as my master, not the white-faced king. A different being? You speak as if you're from a different race than us. Kiriri. That's exactly right. Whoosh. As soon as those words were spoken, an even more intense heat poured out from the two wheels, melting not just the cliff but the ground as well, causing Alia's body to sink as if into a swamp. It's true. Nonsense. In this world where the immortals disappeared thousands of years ago, you're saying some being other than our kind could bind you with a bond? Chi. As its body was being sucked into the ground that had turned like lava, Alia hurriedly shouted. Human. It's a human. Human. At that moment the surging heat suddenly subsided. Along with it, between the two fiercely rotating wheels, a beautiful young boy with flowing red hair and a flame-shaped tattoo burning from his right forehead to his cheek appeared. The beautiful boy spoke with an intrigued expression. You're saying that not a leader-class spirit king, but a mere human is connected to you? Kiriri. It's not a mere human. Not a mere human? If it were just a mere human, do you think I would serve them as my master? You've been away for so long. You don't know how the world has changed. My master has even transcended those 6 demons. Alia deliberately provoked him. It was to stimulate his pride and escape this situation. The best option was to pit him against its master. Considering his comparison to the 6 demons and his relationship with the Great Strength King, he wouldn't let this provocation slide. Has another twisted being been born again? What? I thought the natural order would no longer allow such beings, but I guess there are still variables in everything. This guy, instead of falling for the provocation, what is he saying? Swish. At that moment, the red-haired beautiful boy stretched out his hand towards the cliff that had been heated and was now cooling. What is he trying to do? Crackle. As Alia wondered, the boy waved his hand, and large characters began to be engraved on the cliff face by demonic power. Alia's eyes widened as it saw the characters being engraved. This guy is now. Crunch. Swish. The hand that had been engraving characters on the wall suddenly turned towards Alia. Then, you tried to be clever, but what should I do? You didn't move as I wanted. Well, thanks to you, I guess this will provide some light entertainment. Kirik. Do you think you can manipulate my master as you please? Well, we'll see if I forcibly break that bond connecting you, won't we? Whoosh. Then, with a smile full of malice, flames poured out from the red-haired beautiful boy's hand. Half a day later, Mount Soham. 2 figures gently descended from the air between the melted cliffs that still retained a strange heat. They were the heavenly demon and his wife, Chongryong. Chongryong frowned as she looked at the cliffs that had solidified in a melted form and spoke. This seems to be the right place. They had flown directly to where the bond had been severed. How much heat must have been applied for the surrounding air to still be so warm? Noticing Chongryong's slightly flushed face as she fanned herself, the heavenly demon lightly waved his hand. Whoosh. Cold air rose from his hand, completely cooling the remaining heat. In the process, mist formed from the frost and heat, but that too disappeared completely with just one gesture from the heavenly demon. Thank you. The heavenly demon smiled lightly at her thanks and then walked between the cliffs. As he walked, he noticed some traces. They were wheel-like marks left on the ground. Wheel marks. The wheel marks were quite large and mixed with blackened scorch marks. Despite the stone floor having melted for traces to remain, it seemed considerable pressure had been applied. Not just one. And there were 2 wheels, not one. As he was examining the traces on the ground. Dear. At Chongryong's call, the heavenly demon moved his steps to approach her side. She was looking at the cliff face. The heavenly demon's gaze turned cold as he saw it. It was at that moment. Words were engraved on the wall. It's still breathing. If you find the white-faced king and bring him to the lava cave, I'll hand it over. The white-faced king knows the location of the lava cave. Dear, this seems. Using barbarians to control barbarians. It means using barbarians to control barbarians, implying using one enemy to control another. Whoever it was, they were trying to use the heavenly demon by capturing the demonic beast Eliu. However, their purpose was hard to guess. Asking to bring the white-faced king, whoever did this, their exact purpose couldn't be determined from just this. I don't know what their intention is, but this is clearly a trap. I know. But the heavenly demon didn't finish his sentence. If it were his past self, he might have ignored this. He had been emotionless, and everything except himself was no different from chess pieces. But now it's different. Now he can feel emotions no less than ordinary humans. Therefore he couldn't just abandon his familiar, which he had used like a limb and was still breathing, to avoid the enemy's scheme, as if abandoning a rabbit after hunting or boiling a dog after hunting. Although she loved this change in the heavenly demon, she felt a strange uneasiness. Why are they asking to bring the golden nine-tailed fox? They've led us to have no choice but to find her somehow. It was written that the white-faced king, the golden nine-tailed fox, knew the location of the lava cave. Whether this was true or not was unknown, but they had no choice but to find her, if only to verify it. The problem was that she had disappeared a few months ago. He didn't know why, but she had been annoyed by the constant attacks, so the heavenly demon had forgotten about her for a while. It was at that moment. Master. A familiar voice transmitted thoughts in his mind. It was Go-chan. It was Go-chan, the great commander of the guards, another familiar. What is it? May I ask where you are? Why? The diviner Miss Yeo Surin is looking for you. If it's not urgent, tell her to wait. Someone has killed the diviners and taken away the sealed killing stone statue of the great strength king. A gate of crimson smoke appeared, and soon the diviner Yeo Surin emerged. Behind her, Go-chan, the great commander of the guards possessed by Jang Nung-ae, and a seductive woman with linked arms followed. The woman was none other than Ha Chaerin, the current generation's flying killing assassin and the leader of the flying killing sect. Seeing their linked arms, Chong Ryong looked at them curiously, and Go-chan scratched his head sheepishly and said with a grinning face, "Ha, it just happened. Didn't she say she would torment him like a slave for life because he was the culprit who caused her death?" Chapter 497.6, Side Story 2 Part 1. Master of Flying Killing Sect 1. The Flying Killing Sect, one of the 4 major assassination groups in the Central Plains. The current leader of this Flying Killing Sect, the Flying Killing Assassin, was a person who had reached 60 years of age. Although older compared to active members, his skills were truly unparalleled, allowing him to firmly hold the position of one of the 4 great assassins for over 20 years. However, even he couldn't maintain his former level of skill as he aged, and the time for retirement was approaching. The most likely candidates mentioned were the Vice Sect Leader and Special Grade Assassin No. 1, and Special Grade Assassin No. 2, who had completed the most successful assassinations in the Flying Killing Sect. Judging by their past assassinations and skills alone, both were more than qualified to inherit the position of sect leader and its prestige. Everyone thought that one of these two would become the next sect leader. However, contrary to these expectations, the Vice Sect Leader and Special Grade Assassin No. 1 voluntarily gave up his claim to succession. Because of this, it seemed Special Grade Assassin No. 2 would smoothly inherit the position of sect leader, but the current Flying Killing Assassin also put forward his granddaughter Ha Chaerin as a candidate for his successor. His granddaughter? Does he mean that hooligan of a girl? All the assassins of the Flying Killing Sect thought there was no way the Flying Killing Assassin would pass on his position as sect leader to his only granddaughter. Her temperament was fundamentally far from that of an assassin. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the basis of an assassin lies in cold rationality. But she was the opposite. Despite her young age, she had a foul mouth that never stopped cursing, an obsessive-compulsive disorder that made her extremely averse to anything dirty, and a hot temper that couldn't hold back anger even a little. Nothing about her matched an assassin. Because of this, the executives of the Flying Killing Sect strongly opposed this, advising the Flying Killing Assassin against it. Sai. The current sect leader Flying Killing Assassin Ha Gongwu also thought their opinions were reasonable. His granddaughter truly did not fit the temperament of an assassin. However, human hearts are not always rational. No matter how much of a hooligan she was called or how unsuited she was for being an assassin, it was human nature to want to pass on one's position to a blood relative, as the arm bends inward. There's no solution except to persuade them. After much deliberation, sect leader Ha Gongwu accepted the protests of the Flying Killing sect executives and all the assassins 6 years ago, and forcibly confined his granddaughter Ha Chaerin in the assassin's pavilion. As he confined her, Ha Gongwu sternly warned his granddaughter. This is your last chance. If you want to inherit this old man's position, get your act together. If not, you'll lose everything you should rightfully have. Grandfather. But have you already forgotten your vow to inherit this old man's position and avenge your parents? I understand. But if you've understood, show me that you've changed. I'll try to hold on to this position for a few years somehow. Ha Chaerin entered confinement like that. As she entered, sect leader Ha Gongwu secretly passed on all his secret techniques to her and even provided spirit medicines without the knowledge of the sect members. After 4 years, Ha Chaerin emerged from confinement and, living up to expectations, had reached the peak realm. In fact, given that level of all-out support, it wouldn't be unreasonable to achieve at least this much. But reaching the peak realm in assassin martial arts in just 4 years was impossible without talent. Thanks to this, he was able to create a justification. If assassin Ha Chaerin had remained stagnant despite her confinement, it would be one thing, but as publicly stated, she has reached the peak realm. Shouldn't we give that child a chance now? Sect leader. But there is still one rite of passage remaining. Rite of passage. What they were referring to was the 100 kills. The 100 kills is achieved by successfully completing 100 designated assassination requests, and upon accomplishing this, one is called one of the 4 great assassins. Since one cannot fail even once, only a very small number of assassins have achieved this, and he too had passed this to inherit the title of Flying Killing Assassin, one of the 4 great assassins. During her confinement, Special Grade Assassin No. 2 had attempted the 100 kills and achieved 62 successful assassinations without failure. This time, you must accomplish it entirely on your own strength without this old man's help. Can you do it? Of course. She showed strong confidence, and she turned that confidence into reality. In less than a year, she successfully completed 60 assassination requests. This changed her standing within the sect. But at this time an incident occurred. Miss, the sect leader has passed away. The sect leader Ha Gongwu had lost his life at a point when the successor had not yet been determined. Apart from his tireless efforts to pass on his legacy to his granddaughter, he had spent many years trying to find the culprit who killed his son and daughter-in-law. However, just as he had finally found a clue to the culprit, the price was nothing short of tragic. The place he had come to, guided by the vice sect leader and special grade assassin No. 1. That place was dyed in blood. Ha Chaerin embraced sect leader Ha Gongwu's body and wailed. Grandpa? You can't be dead, right? Grandpa, you're one of the 4 great assassins of the Central Plains, the Flying Killing Assassin. Get up. You can't die. I said get up. She couldn't stop crying for over half a day at that place. The vice sect leader and special grade assassin No. 1 said to her. Are you going to keep crying like that? Then what do you want me to do? My only family has died and you're telling me not to be sad. An assassin is not one who answers with tears. What? If you truly want to do right by the sect leader, claim that position rightfully and avenge him. You want me to complete the 100 kills when the sect leader position is vacant? What kind of bullshit is that? Then will you not honor the sect leader's wishes? At the vice sect leader and special grade assassin No. 1's sharp rebuke, she was at a loss for words. Then, as if she had come to her senses, she shouted, I'll do it. I will. Grandpa. I'll definitely inherit your position and avenge you. No matter who it is. As she tried to personally take care of her grandfather's body, she accidentally discovered something. It was a wound engraved near her grandfather's thigh. What's this? It was a mark as if punctured by a needle, not an old wound but one that had been made recently. It looked like a mark left with all his remaining strength, but it only appeared as 3 eyes. She couldn't understand what this meant at all. What was certain was that this was the only clue about the culprit that her grandfather had left before dying. So she started the 100 kills again to fully inherit her grandfather's position. She smoothly completed 99 assassinations and was left with just the last one. Special grade assassin No. 2, who was competing with her for the sect leader position, had also completed 98 requests. The vice sect leader, who was serving as acting sect leader, thought that unless there was a special variable, Ha-Cheon would succeed in the last request. Not bad. Ha-Cheon's final high-grade request was to kill Mok Jaeong-un, the third son of the Yun Mok Sword Manor, a prestigious righteous martial arts family. According to the information, Mok Jaeong-un, the third son of the Yun Mok Sword Manor, did not have very high martial arts skills. In fact, he was rather poor for a scion of a prestigious martial arts family. Just considering the act of killing him, it wasn't a very difficult task. The only challenge was to handle it quietly. However, the result was Vice Sect Leader. It seems the young miss has failed the final request. The cause. It seems to be related to the sudden seclusion of the Yun Mok Sword Manor. Seclusion. It literally meant sealing off martial arts activities. Usually, seclusion occurs when a sect is defeated in a war between sects or when the sect collapses. Does that mean a war had broken out at the Yun Mok Sword Manor? The Vice Sect Leader number 1, who found Ha-Cheon's failure in the 100 kills less incomprehensible than her disappearance, mobilized all the sect's connections and informants to find out the reason. Heaven and Earth Society. For some unknown reason, the Heaven and Earth Society had attacked the Yun Mok Sword Manor. The sect leader candidate Ha-Cheon had not only failed her final request after getting caught up in it but seemed to have disappeared. Most of the sect members, including the executives, asserted that if she had definitely been involved with the Heaven and Earth Society, granddaughter Ha-Cheon must be dead. However, he didn't think so. No one from the Yun Mok Sword Manor knew about Ha-Cheon, and not even her body had been found. Therefore, he argued that they shouldn't give up on her return until the very end. The executives expressed their dissatisfaction with this, but the third young master of the Yun Mok Sword Manor, Mok Jaeong-un, who was the target of the final request, has disappeared. By your logic, shouldn't we consider him dead as well? Acting sect leader. Isn't that separate from the young Mrs. matter? Haven't you received information that the third and youngest young masters of the Yun Mok Sword Manor might have been taken hostage by the Heaven and Earth Society? If that information is correct, have you not considered that the young miss might have infiltrated the Heaven and Earth Society to complete her request to the end? Do you really think so? Everyone ignored his opinion. This was because it was the Heaven and Earth Society. The Heaven and Earth Society, one of the top forces dividing the martial arts world into three, was a place where even the 4 great assassins refused requests. To follow them in and carry out a request? That was absolutely impossible. Several months passed like that. The Vice Sect Leader and Special Grade Assassin number 1, who had somehow maintained his position out of loyalty to the sect leader's family, was confronted by a group of armed executives led by Special Grade Assassin number 2. Will you really come out like this? Acting sect leader. Stop being stubborn. Isn't it time to accept it? The young miss lost her life back then. In the end, he had to step down from the position of acting sect leader. He had tried to maintain his position somehow out of loyalty to the previous sect leader and his family, but now even he had to accept the death of Ha-Cheon, the last bloodline of the Ha family. Half a year and another year passed from then. The Flying Killing Sect's request system is divided into 3. Low-grade, mid-grade and high-grade requests. While they accepted requests up to mid-grade in the usual way, high-grade requests were only accepted in a special guest area of the pleasure house they operated. A guest visited that place after a long time. After the Great War between the righteous and unorthodox sects, the balance of the 3 major forces was broken, and with the golden age of the demonic path arriving, they had been unable to avoid losses for several months due to unexpectedly few assassination requests. Therefore, they were hoping for a breakthrough with this high-grade request after a long time. But then, what? The Special Grade Assassin number 3, who was serving as the Madam of the Pleasure House, doubted her ears for a moment at the words of the bamboo hat-wearing man in front of her. "Customer, what are you saying?" I said, "The master of the Flying Killing Sect has returned, so now return that position." "Huh. I thought we were finally getting some relief, but troublesome guests have arrived." Swish. Special Grade Assassin number 3 slightly raised her hand. At that, the high-grade assassins hiding in the room revealed themselves, drawing their weapons. They surrounded the bamboo hat-wearing man and the veiled woman clinging to his arm. Shing. The Madam of the Pleasure House also drew the soft sword at her waist and spoke. "Who are you? If you don't reveal your identity and state your purpose immediately, I'll take your life right here." Before she could finish her words. Number 3. It's been a while. Special Grade Assassin Number Three's eyes trembled at the voice coming from behind the veil. A year and a half had passed and she had almost forgotten, but there was no way she could forget that voice. No way. Could you be? The veiled woman rolled up her sleeve and showed the bracelet on her wrist. Seeing this, the madam's face turned to shock as she denied reality. It can't be. You should have died. I'm alive. Like this. Swoosh. A needle-hidden weapon shot out from the bracelet, grazing past her hair. Seeing this, Special Grade Assassin Number 3 could no longer deny it. That was the bracelet containing the Spirit Shadow Needle, which could be called the symbol of the Flying Killing Sect. The backyard of the Flying Killing Sect headquarters. Yosu, who had become Special Grade Assassin Number 2 and taken the name upon becoming sect leader, was dumbfounded to see Special Grade Assassin Number 3 suddenly bringing outsiders to the headquarters. This place cannot be entered with outsiders. What are you doing reporting nothing? Number 3. I apologize. But these people have the qualification. Qualification? That qualification is for you to judge. Before his words could finish. You've become quite arrogant since sitting in the sect leader's seat. Number 2. Sect leader Yosu's expression hardened for a moment. At the all-too-familiar voice, he glared at the veiled woman thinking it can't be. Then the woman removed her veil as if it was cumbersome. Yosu couldn't hide his surprise at the face revealed. Hacho-Eren? Hey, you don't even call me young miss anymore. The veiled woman was none other than Hacho-Eren, the successor to the previous sect leader who was thought to be dead. The assassins around stirred at her appearance. There were some new assassins, but most of those present naturally knew her. To think that she, who they thought was dead, had returned to the Flying Killing Sect. Sect leader Yosu, who had been surprised, spoke in a voice full of wariness. You were alive, so why didn't you return? Shouldn't you be happy if I've returned alive? Why are you so wary? Number 2. Don't call me that. This sect leader is now the master of the Flying Killing Sect. Master? Who made you the master? At Hacho-Eren's displeased tone, sect leader Yosu snorted. He didn't know how she was still alive, but was this the reason she came back? To reclaim the position of sect leader? But it's too late. He had already inherited the position of sect leader and the prestige of being one of the 4 great assassins, the Flying Killing Assassin. In the year and a half he had also cleared out all those who were loyal to the Ha family, so now the Flying Killing Sect was entirely his. How dare you talk about being the master when you disappeared without even achieving the 100 kills? If you came back because you want to die. How petty. A voice interrupted before he could finish speaking. At this, sect leader Yosu threw a flying dagger towards the owner of that voice to make an example. Swoosh. Having become sect leader, he had reached the transcendent realm by cultivating assassination techniques. He had reached the highest realm possible for an assassin. But then, the bamboo hat-wearing man next to Hacho-Eren caught it with his index and middle fingers. Hey, you try to kill someone just for cutting off your words. Things have become a mess since I've been away. What? Since he's been away? Who is this guy to say such things? As he wondered, Hacho-Eren clung to his arm and said with a triumphant face. Did you go crazy wanting to die, throwing a flying dagger at my husband? Husband? Did that girl get married in the meantime? No, that wasn't the important thing. Who is this guy? He thought the man hadn't trained in martial arts since he couldn't feel any energy, but could he have been concealing it? Who are you? Who am I? Right. I should answer that, it's only proper. As soon as he finished speaking, the man took off his bamboo hat. As the face hidden by the bamboo hat was revealed, sect leader Yosu and the Flying Killing Sect assassins couldn't hide their bewilderment. It was a face they'd never seen before and they had no idea who he was. But then, I'm Go-chan. Go-chan. At the name Go-chan, everyone froze for a moment before erupting in shock and chaos. Go-chan, the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult. The right-hand man of the greatest under heaven. As if enjoying their reaction, Go-chan crossed his arms and put on airs. It was the glorious return of an orphan and former low-grade assassin of the Flying Killing Sect. This is it. Chapter 497.7, East Side Story 2 Part 2. Master of Flying Killing Sect. T. the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult, Go-chan? The right-hand man of the greatest under heaven? The assassins stirred. At their reaction, the current sect leader of the flying killing sect, Oyosu, couldn't hide his bewilderment with a hardened expression. What kind of nonsensical situation is this? Hachaerin, who they thought had died after failing the final assassination of the 100 kills, not only got married, but her husband is the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult, called the right-hand man of the greatest under heaven? Does this make any sense? Momentarily flustered, he soon denied it. Nonsense. Why would the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult's leader come here? Do you think we'll believe that? No matter how he thought about it, it couldn't be true. Why would the great commander of the guards, who should be protecting the sect leader, come here? And married to a girl from an assassin background, no less. Swish. Flying killing sect assassins surround them. Raising his hand to signal at sect leader Oyosu's command, the assassins hesitated for a moment before drawing their weapons and surrounding Go-chan and Hachaerin. At first they had some doubts, but they too found this strange. How very amusing. Go-chan snorted and then whistled. Pfui. As soon as the sound echoed around. Swoosh 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 swoosh. As if they had been waiting, dozens of warriors revealed themselves on the walls surrounding the flying killing sect. The expressions of the assassins, including sect leader Oyosu, hardened at their appearance. This was because each of the warriors was a master who had reached the peak realm. Moreover, zing 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 zing. Those who had been surrounding Go-chan and Hachaerin were suddenly trapped by extremely sharp silver threads, unable to move. The identity of the woman who had instantly subdued them with silver threads was Emo Harang. She was the vice commander of the heavenly demon divine cult's guard. However, what surprised the assassins even more was the silver thread she was using. The Demon Fire Hall? It was undoubtedly the silver thread net, called the Treasure of the Demon Fire Hall, one of the 4 great assassin groups. The Demon Fire Hall, known to have inherited the secret techniques of the Flying Killing King, who was called the pinnacle of the assassin world in the ancient martial arts era, was also famous for becoming part of the heavenly demon divine cult. With this, the assassins and executives of the Flying Killing sect, including sect leader Oyosu, could recognize the reality. These people were not imposters. They were the Real Guard of the heavenly demon divine cult's leader. Why is the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult in a place like this? Although they were one of the 4 great assassin groups, there was no way they could compare to the heavenly demon divine cult, called the greatest power in the current martial arts world. If the heavenly demon divine cult decided, they could annihilate them within an hour. That's why the assassins couldn't help but be terrified. At that moment, sect leader Oyosu spoke with a distorted face. Why does the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult interfere in another sect's affairs? It's not another sect. What? What's wrong with me being involved in my wife's sect? And strictly speaking, I was originally from here in my past life. Past life? What on earth is he talking about? As they were trying to understand, Go-chan spoke with his hands behind his back. Well, to cut to the chase, the rightful owner of the Flying Killing sect is my wife. So step down from that position. Grind. Rightful owner, what nonsense. Sect leader Oyosu felt a surge of anger for a moment, but since he couldn't fight against the guard of the heavenly demon divine cult's leader, he had to endure it with extreme patience. Then Oyosu finally managed to speak. It seems the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult has heard something that might cause a misunderstanding about your wife, so let me explain. To become the sect leader of our sect, one must achieve the 100 kills. However, your wife. She achieved it. What? No, it was achieved from the beginning. Because the real Mok Jiongun died before that. At Go-chan's words, the surroundings stirred. She achieved the 100 kills. If so, it meant that Hachaerin had also fulfilled the qualification to be sect leader. And decisively, my wife can be said to be the legitimate successor of the Flying Killing sect. At Go-chan's words, Hachaerin showed the bracelet on her wrist. The bracelet containing the spirit shadow needle, it was a treasure that was like the symbol of the Flying Killing sect. Seeing this, the assassins of the Flying Killing sect were shaken even more. Murmur murmur. Go-chan urged them. Do you still not know who the true master is? Thud, thud, thud. Then the assassins of the Flying Killing sect knelt and paid respects to Hachaerin. Seeing this, sect leader Oyosu closed his eyes with a distorted face as if in anguish. In just a year and a half his era had come to an end. Unable to overcome the disappointment, he moved his hand to his neck to take his own life. But at that moment, a needle-hidden weapon pierced the back of his hand. It was the Spirit Shadow Needle. The back of his hand hit by the Spirit Shadow Needle began to rapidly paralyze. Sect leader Oyosu looked at Hachiran with incomprehensible eyes. He was going to take his own life because he had to step down anyway now that she had reclaimed her position, so why did she stop him? Then she spoke. I'll step down from the sect leader position and pass it on to special grade assassin number 2, who achieved the 100 kills after me. At these words, the eyes of sect leader Oyosu and the assassins widened. What on earth is she saying? Is she saying she'll step down right after reclaiming her position? Oyosu, who had already been prepared to take his life, revealed his true feelings out of sheer bewilderment. Are you toying with us now? I'm not toying with you. Then what exactly are you doing? At his angry outcry, Hachiran spoke with a rather serious face. I'm just trying to fulfill my grandfather's last wish. The previous sect leader's last wish? Grandfather wanted me to become the sect leader of the Flying Killing sect and avenge his son, my father. Then why? I've avenged him. No, they avenged him for me. My husband and his lord. By husband and lord, does she mean the great commander of the guards Go-chan and the heavenly demon divine cult's leader? What on earth is going on here? As they wondered, Hachiran said. 3 eyes. The true culprit my grandfather wanted to point out was Mokgon, third-eyed. The one who truly had a third eye. That was her family's true enemy. That enemy had such absolute power that neither her grandfather nor she could have the ability to repay it. However, coincidentally, it was the current greatest under heaven, the heavenly demon, who avenged this, and his right-hand man Go-chan played a decisive role. Cling. Hachiran clung to Go-chan's arm and said, So I've inherited the sect leader position as per my grandfather's last wish, and now I plan to retire and spend my life supporting my husband. I also have a debt to my husband that I can't repay even in a lifetime. She couldn't bring herself to say that out loud. Hey, let's live together for the rest of our lives. A completely unexpected, blunt proposal. At first, Hachiran found it difficult to accept. But I made you like this. Well, what can we do? It's already in the past. And thanks to that, it turned into a blessing in disguise, so I'm going to keep you by my side and torment you for the rest of our lives. Lord Go-chan. She was grateful to Go-chan for that. Although Go-chan said he had forgiven her, she considered it a lifelong task to repay him. Sect leader Oyosu's mind became complicated at her conclusion. He had desperately wanted to become sect leader all his life and had worked hard to seize that position, but he was about to take his own life out of the sense of loss from losing it in an instant. But when she tried to brush it off so casually, his feelings became mixed. However, thinking about it, Hachiran's position wasn't incomprehensible. Although being the sect leader of the Flying Killing sect was his dream, and for her, it was the last wish of her grandfather, the previous sect leader, now she was the wife of the great commander of the guards of the heavenly demon divine cult. It might be natural for this position not to appeal to her eyes. Somehow it feels even more empty. Why does it feel like she's more successful? Once they had competed for the sect leader position, but now all of that seemed futile. Swirl. Suddenly, crimson smoke began to flow out where they were, forming a circle and creating an entrance. The assassins who were unfamiliar with this sudden strange phenomenon couldn't hide their surprise. Meanwhile, a short-haired woman with a cute appearance dressed as a diviner emerged from the smoke entrance. Diviner Yeo Surin? Go-chan recognized her. Then Diviner Yeo Surin urgently said to him, Guard Go-chan. Please ask the cult leader where he is through your mental connection right away. Chang Ryong smiled and shook her head as Go-chan scratched his head sheepishly. She thought that something felt odd, and in the end it turned out like this. Then the heavenly demon asked Diviner Yeo Surin, What do you mean someone took the killing stone statue of great strength, king? It's exactly as I said. They burned all the diviners and... Yeo Surin sighed as she noticed the traces of melted cliffs around them. Although there was no heat left, she realized that a similar aftermath had swept through this place as well. What is this place? The demonic beast Aliu was attacked. Aliu? Isn't that the cult leader's familiar? Look at that. The heavenly demon pointed to the words engraved on the cliff. Her expression hardened when she saw it. It seems the purpose of whoever did this is quite clear. They're trying to awaken the sealed Great Strength King, I suppose. Before they knew about the disappearance of Great Strength King's statue, they couldn't understand why someone was looking for the white-faced king, the golden nine-tailed fox. However, since only she could restore the Killing Stone statue of Great Strength King back to its original form, the purpose was now clear. Chong Ryong asked curiously, could it be the work of those related to Three Eyes? Three Eyes. During the Great War between the righteous and unorthodox sects, most of the Imi Manjiang in the Central Plains had gathered at the 10,000 Great Mountains due to the great calamity caused by Three Eyes. Even 4 of the 6 demons, known as the pinnacle of Imi Manjiang, had gathered. Among them, Lion-Grasping King and White Phoenix Demon King were annihilated in the war, and Great Strength King was sealed in the Killing Stone. Each of the 6 demons was like a natural disaster that could destroy a country, and it was impossible for ordinary humans to dare to touch or try to awaken them. That's why both Chong Ryong and the Heavenly Demon couldn't help but associate this with Three Eyes. But then, it might not be related to Three Eyes. Isn't it too early to be certain? Although it had almost disappeared even in ancient records, so I thought it couldn't be, but seeing those words, lava cave, engraved on the cliff, I think it might be that being after all. That being? What on earth is this being she's talking about? As he wondered, Yeo Surin looked at the wheel marks on the ground and spoke. There are records remaining in some ancient books predating the classic of mountains and seas, about a being that once rivaled the 6 demons. Rivaled the 6 demons? Yes. They say there was an Imi Manjiang called the worst and strongest without dispute, before the current 6 demons. This Imi Manjiang is said to have been born from a stone where all the energy of heaven and earth converged. Are you saying that being did this to this place? No. That being was so strong that even the Great Strength King, known to have no equal in strength, couldn't do anything against it. But I heard there was an Imi Manjiang that managed to trouble that being for a moment. So what exactly is this being you're talking about? To this question from the Heavenly Demon, Diviner Yeo Surin answered in a meaningful voice. The Red Boy, 1. Chapter 497.8, Side Story 3 Part 1. The Flame Mountain. Maihiku, Jilin Province. There was a hole about 20 jang in size on one of its cliffs. The hole was so deep that it was called a bottomless pit from which one could never climb back up if they fell in, and it was said that no one had ever reached its bottom. Although it seemed there would be nothing at the bottom of Maihiku where not even a speck of light reached, there was something snoring there. Its snoring was so loud that it shook the surroundings. The regular snoring sound that had been continuing for a while suddenly stopped. Then white glowing eyes opened. The chilling white glowing eyes scanned the surroundings, searching for something. Then, whoosh! Flames erupted, brightening the surroundings. The flames revealed the form of the being with the white glowing eyes. It was a huge, grotesque monkey with a purple face covered in white fur. However, this giant monkey's arms and legs were bound by rusted iron chains, making it look difficult to move properly. It was here. At that moment, along with the voice, someone appeared from within the flames. Seeing that being, the giant monkey with white eyes prostrated itself on the ground. Boom! Though it merely struck its head on the ground, the surroundings shook as if an earthquake had occurred. Seeing this, the red-haired beautiful boy who appeared from the flames raised the corner of his mouth and spoke. White Ghost King, 1. So you were still here? As soon as those words ended, the giant monkey with white eyes called the White Ghost King suddenly wailed as if in sorrow. Wah wah! The surroundings echoed. To this. Stop wailing. Wah! I've been waiting only for this day. Is he forgiving me now? The one you served can't forgive you or do anything else. What do you mean? The white-faced king, no, that fox bitch turned him into stone. How dare you? Boom. At the red-haired beautiful boy's words, the White Ghost King with white eyes struck the ground with both fists, his face terribly distorted. The ground split and tremendous winds swept in all directions. Even the surrounding walls crumbled from the storm-like winds. Boom, boom. He continued striking the ground, showing no signs of stopping. Enough. At the red-haired beautiful boy's shout, the White Ghost King stopped with an enraged face. Growling. Where the hell is that damn fox bitch? Looking at the White Ghost King who couldn't calm his excitement, the red-haired beautiful boy smirked and answered. She'll come looking for me on her own soon. Then should I tear that fox bitch apart for his sake? No. You have something else to do. Give me any order. I'm willing to do anything for the great sage equaling heaven. The red boy. Red boy. Red boy. Yes. Hong Hei, too. As the name suggests, it means red child. Even the heavenly demon who had read all the divination technique ancient books possessed by Zhou Tiqiang, another Three Eyes, was hearing this name for the first time. To this, diviner Yeo Suren said, just as there are heroes forgotten as time passes, there were beings among the Imi Manjiang who were infamous in ancient times. This red boy can be considered one of those Imi Manjiang. Why is an Imi Manjiang that had disappeared even from records suddenly appearing to try and break Great Strength King's seal? I'm not certain, but there's something like this in an ancient book. It said there is one Imi Manjiang who inherited Great Strength King's bloodline, and that. Is that red boy? Yes. This is written in one of the ancient books, the Unbroken Summary, 3. Near the Flame Mountain in Mount Ziyun, there is a spirit beast called the Iron Fan Immortal, and the Imi Manjiang born from her passionate union with Great Strength King, turning the surroundings into a wasteland, is none other than Red Boy. This Imi Manjiang, born in the Flame Mountain which could be called Flames all year round, is said to be the very incarnation of fire. The heavenly demon who had been listening to Yeo Suren's story, interrupted to ask, is he strong? Didn't I just tell you? He even managed to trouble for a moment the Imi Manjiang born from a stone where all the energy of heaven and earth converged. How strong is that Imi Manjiang born from the converged energy of heaven and earth? Is it at a similar level to Great Strength King? Don't you know the legend of Mount Wuji on Hainan Island? Mount Wuji. There is a large mountain on Hainan Island said to be in the shape of 5 fingers. The people living there call that mountain Mount Wuji, Five-Finger Mountain. The heavenly demon knew most of the well-known place names in the Central Plains, having wandered around to avenge his grandfather. However, knowing the place names doesn't necessarily mean knowing the legends related to those regions. What's the legend of Mount Wuji? The people living on Mount Wuji believe that mountain is the hand of the Tathagata. Tathagata? Shakyamuni Buddha. Yes. Shakyamuni Buddha is the founder of Buddhism and the Buddha himself. Although there are many venerable ones and Tathagatas in Buddhism, Shakyamuni Buddha was the first and pioneer. Why do they believe it's Shakyamuni Buddha's hand? In the local legend of Mount Wuji, it's said that an Imi Manjiang born from the convergence of heaven and earth's energy was trapped under that mountain. Although it's not known exactly what that Imi Manjiang was called, ancient books referred to it as the Stone Monkey or the Railing Monkey King. Railing Monkey King? Was it sealed in Mount Wuji? Yes. That Railing Monkey King was born in a stone where heaven and earth's energy converged and was so strong that it was called a calamity even the heavens feared at the time. Everywhere it moved brought destruction, so all the immortals who couldn't bear to watch tried everything to seal that Imi Manjiang but couldn't do anything about it. Then why is Shakyamuni Buddha related to the legend of Mount Wuji? When the immortals couldn't do anything with their own power, they asked for help from Buddha Shakyamuni, who was known to have understood all the principles. That's why in the legend, it's said that Shakyamuni Buddha descended as a spirit god, breaking the natural order and sealed that Imi Manjiang. As she said this, she made a gesture of pressing down on the ground with her palm. It seemed she was indicating that Mount Wuji was in that shape. So that's Mount Wuji. That's right. Ancient books say that Imi Manjiang had such invincible strength that it was called the worst and strongest among the Imi Manjiang that had existed since the time of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. There are even stories that say even Great Strength King was no match for it. So you're saying this red boy, who is said to be of Great Strength King's bloodline, is strong enough to have troubled even that Railing Monkey King? At the heavenly demon's question, Yeo Suren nodded worriedly. If the ancient books are correct. So it's not just comparable to the 6 demons, but could be even beyond that. That's what worries me. Even without Great Strength King, said to have the greatest strength among the 6 demons, the other 6 demons were great calamities that could cause the downfall of a country. She too remembered having fought against White Phoenix Demon King during the Great War between the righteous and unorthodox sects. It was truly a horrible nightmare. The only fortunate thing was that there was a greater countermeasure right in front of them. She had already witnessed his tremendous might with her own eyes. He surpasses even those 6 demons. However, the danger scale of Imi Manjiang can't be simply calculated based on transmitted records. I know how strong you are, cult leader, but if this being really is Red Boy, it would be best to be careful. I have no intention of being careless. The opponent was an Imi Manjiang with enough intelligence to try to move the heavenly demon to get what it wanted. At that level, regardless of strength, if he was careless, the damage to the surroundings could be great. Now that he had many precious things, the heavenly demon was more wary of them getting hurt than himself. That's why he wanted to resolve this as quickly as possible, but the problem is the golden nine-tailed fox. She had disappeared without a trace a few months ago. He had forgotten about her, thinking it was good riddance since he was annoyed by her constant advances, but now he couldn't even sense a trace of her demonic power, wondering where on earth she had disappeared to. So the heavenly demon asked just in case, "Do you know where the lava cave is?" At this question, Diviner Yeo Surin shook her head. She too didn't know where the lava cave was. "I don't know. Ancient books mention that it ate humans at Gusangan 5. In 600 Re Diamond Head Mountain 6. But 600 Re Diamond Head Mountain. It was a mountain he had never heard of before. The fact that even the heavenly demon, who knew almost all place names, had never heard of it meant it must be an ancient name that was no longer known. At that moment, Chong Ryong said, "Why don't we have Miss Yeo find out what that place name is called now? My husband and I will look for the golden nine-tailed fox. If we find the golden nine-tailed fox, we might end up breaking Great Strength King's seal as well." Diviner Yeo Surin was concerned about this. If they were led around as the opponent wanted, it could lead to the worst outcome. To this, the heavenly demon looked at the cliff wall and said, "I can't leave Aliu to die. But cult leader, that's an Imi Manjiang. What difference does it make whether it's an Imi Manjiang or a human?" At these words from the heavenly demon, Yeo Surin pressed her lips shut. She understood that he wasn't saying there was no difference between humans and Imi Manjiang, but that it belonged to him. "I understand. Then I'll return to the Harmonious Immortal Pavilion to check if my master has returned and find out what the current name of 600 Re Diamond Head Mountain is. Please take this with you." Yeo Surin took something out from her bosom. It was a magical tool that could be worn on a finger. This is. The heavenly demon had received a similar magical tool from Diviner Yeo Surin before as a result of a bet. It was a magical tool that could create a gateway to cross space. You remember the one I gave you before, right? This is one I made following my master's method of creating magical tools. It can only be used once, but in exchange there's no distance limit. No distance limit? Yes, but the destination is predetermined. Where is the destination? The headquarters of the heavenly demon divine cult. I connected it there when I visited. At her words, the heavenly demon nodded in satisfaction and put the magical tool in his bosom. No matter how quickly he could fly using the ability to travel through the void, nothing was as useful as this. Could save that much time after all. Then I'll head to the Harmonious Immortal Pavilion. She took out the large brush she was carrying on her back and was about to draw a circle in the air. At that moment, the great commander of the guards Go Chan, who had been quietly listening to their conversation, hurriedly said, "Diviner Yeo, please wait a moment. What should I do about my master?" I followed Diviner Yeo here somehow, but after listening to their conversation, it seemed this wasn't a problem he could solve by following along and assisting this time. Rather, it felt like he might become a burden. At Go Chan's words, the heavenly demon shrugged and then asked Yeo Surin, "Can you take them back to where they were originally?" "All right." After sending Go Chan and Hachaeron back to the Flying Killing Sect where they were originally, Diviner Yeo Surin opened another gateway and returned to the Harmonious Immortal Pavilion. After she left, Chong Ryong asked, "Dear, but how do we find the golden nine-tailed fox?" Well, if she had deliberately hidden herself, there was no way to find her. They couldn't search the entire Central Plains one by one, so they had to think of a method, but suddenly the heavenly demon thought of a certain place. The Flame Mountain. The Flame Mountain? Isn't that the place Miss Yeo mentioned earlier? The Flame Mountain. 7. Certainly, it was said that Great Strength King and a spirit beast called the Iron Fan Immortal had a passionate union near there on Mount Suiyun and Red Boy was born. Then there might be a clue there. Fortunately, there was a place called the Flame Mountain in Xinjiang. We should go there first. If there was a place called 600 Re Diamond Head Mountain near the Flame Mountain, they might be able to find it with his expanded sense of energy.